Much to cover on Friday, the Friday edition of the program. Anywhere you're watching this show, hit that like button. Any social media platform you're watching upon, give the show a like, a share, interact with the show. You can dictate the pace and tempo of the program with some perspective. Let's have some fun on a Friday right before the weekend on the I Love Seville network. So much to cover on today's program. Judah Wickower is our director. We'll talk Peloton and the influence that Sex and the City and the reboot of Sex and the City is having on Peloton. Of course, we're going to talk about this Uva Coaching Search. Kevin Higgins, a regular contributor to the program. Kevin, we love when you watch the program. Sent me an article on Tony Elliott that I'm going to reference on the show. Evidently, negotiations with Tony Elliott have hit a snag, as reported by Sports Illustrated. So we'll talk about that on the program. Folks are asking, what is Carla Williams doing? The athletic director, Dr. Carla Williams, to be exact, the athletic director of the University of Virginia. And is she impacting this coaching search and this coaching hire? Hello, Stephanie Rhodes. Hello, Scott Aaronworth from Virginia Beach. We love when you guys watch the program. If you have questions or comments, let's put them in the feed. Stephanie, thank you for sharing. Sex and the City has a reboot on HBO Max, and Mr. Big, the cigar-loving, cocktail-loving, steak-eating lover of beautiful women, Mr. Big, died in the first episode. Spoiler alert, I guess I should have started with. And his death was associated with Peloton, and the stock is tumbling hard. Lee Enterprises, the parent company of the Daily Progress, rejected an offer from a hedge fund company to purchase the Daily Progress and various other newspapers. We'll discuss how that impacts Central Virginia and Charlottesville, and we will compare and contrast the UVA coaching search to City Hall turmoil here in the city of Charlottesville, Virginia. Many similarities with the UVA football coaching search and the turmoil in City Hall. JW, one of the viewers and listeners of this program, I will use his initials because I don't know if he wants his name out there. He referenced the similarities between City Hall turmoil and the UVA coaching search turmoil, and it really got me thinking. So JW, thank you for that. Rupert Murdoch is trying to do his best impersonation of Kevin Costner and Yellowstone. I'll tell you how and why. And if you're not watching Yellowstone, you're missing one of the best shows on television. My wife and I are watching very closely to that program. Judah, we can rock and roll when you're ready. Guys, good Friday afternoon, and welcome to the I Love Seville show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love Seville network. It is fantastic to connect with you guys through this platform today, presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary in the Charlottesville Downtown Mall. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, certificates of analyses for everything in the store. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, located next to Rapture on the Downtown Mall, the top dispensary in the city of Charlottesville, guys. So much to cover, including Rupert Murdoch doing his best Kevin Costner impersonation from Yellowstone, scooping up a ranch of tremendous proportions. We're talking a ranch that has 340,000 acres. If you're not watching Yellowstone, before I get into topics like UVA's coaching search, the comparison of the coaching search here with the football program to the turmoil in City Hall, before I get into topics like Dr. Carla Williams, the athletic director at UVA, and her influence on this coaching search, and whether some of these snags or snafus can be attributed to the athletic director. Before I relay just a fantastic article that was passed on to me from Kevin Higgins, one of the viewers and listeners of the I Love Seville show. He sent me an article, Kevin Higgins, from Sports Illustrated, just showcasing Tony Elliott and some of the adversity he's gone through. And it really opened up my eyes to what an incredible hire Tony Elliott could be here in Charlottesville. Before I get to all that, I do want to encourage anyone that's watching and listening to this program, and we're live on every social media platform known to mankind. If you guys are not watching Yellowstone, you can catch the first few seasons streaming on Peacock, and season 4 Sunday nights on the Paramount Network. If you're not watching Kevin Costner and Yellowstone and this Dutton family, you are missing one of the best TV shows I literally have ever seen. And I don't use terminology like that lightly. Yellowstone is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. Watch this TV show. It is that good. All right, topics we're going to cover on today's show. We'll talk UVA coaching saga, the search saga that is this football coach. We will compare and contrast the UVA football coaching saga to the turmoil experience here in City Hall in Charlottesville, Virginia. We will talk Dr. Carla Williams, the athletic director of the University of Virginia, and we will ask the question, are the snags and snafus in this coaching search at all the responsibility, or can they be attributed to the athletic director? This is the most important hire Carla Williams will make. She has only hired one other coach at UVA in her tenure. And the football coach, in a lot of ways, is the face of the athletic department. I will relay details from a phenomenal Sports Illustrated feature story on Tony Elliott, the Clemson assistant coach that is on a very short list for the UVA job. Tony Elliott, and thank you to Kevin Higgins for sending this to me, has got a very impressive background. Very impressive. Lee Enterprises, another topic we will cover, is the parent company of the Daily Progress. Lee Enterprises owns the Richmond Times-Dispatch, the Roanoke Times, and a number of other periodicals in the Commonwealth. Lee Enterprises yesterday rejected an aggressive bid from a hedge fund to purchase its business and the newspaper that is located on Rio Road here in Charlottesville. I will give my take on why this rejection from Lee Enterprises of Alden Capital is good news for us in the Charlottesville and Central Virginia community. We will also relay to you how Sex in the City, and there's a little bit of a spoiler alert, although it does not really impact the plot line that much, how the Sex in the City reboot on HBO Max, how this reboot is negatively impacting Peloton. Peloton, the company known for their stationary bikes, for their treadmills, and their digital interactive workout environment that you can do from your house. So much to cover, including Rupert Murdoch, the owner of probably the biggest media mogul in the world, the guy most known for his ownership of Fox News. Rupert Murdoch just purchased a $200 million ranch in Montana that has over 340,000 acres associated with the ranch. Beaverhead Ranch sits next to Yellowstone National Park. He got it from the Koch brothers, and he spent $200 million on it. I'll pass that story along to you, and again, encourage you to watch Yellowstone, the show. It is so good. First, we need to talk about this UVA coaching search. The saga continues of who is going to be the skipper of the Virginia football program here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Now we are tracking and closely following airplane travel routes and who's coming from various airports to Cho, with the hope that we can associate those travel routes with the next football coach in Charlottesville. Now, a lot of folks are saying, look, let's pump the brakes. Let's slow the process down. We don't have to rush into who we hire as the head coach of the University of Virginia football team. Let's let's find the best candidate and not a candidate that's rushed. I understand that take. I would caution people to say patience is a virtue. It's not always a virtue. Patience is not always a virtue. Patience in the entrepreneurship game, not always a virtue. A lot of times the best entrepreneurs throw something against the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't stick, they try something else immediately. And who said this on the show? Someone who said this on the I Live Single network recently. Oh, it was Jeff Camrath yesterday on Today y Mañana with the Erpies, Alex and Xavier. He said, fail fast. Fail fast. A mindset for entrepreneurs. Look, here's what I'm going to say about patience in this Virginia football program and the coaching search. December 15th is a recruiting deadline. December 15th, a lot of recruits are going to determine where they're going to go play college football. Standout ballers in high school. If Virginia doesn't pick a head coach soon, it will undoubtedly impact the recruiting process and getting 17 and 18-year-olds to commit to Charlottesville, Scott Stadium, and the University of Virginia. Furthermore, the longer the coaching staff and the head coach is unknown, the more likely we will see our current best players consider transferring from the program. Brennan Armstrong said on Tuesday to David Teal of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, I am considering transferring and I will base my decision on coaching staff moves and which people on my team transfer away from the program. So the longer we have uncertainty with the Virginia football coaching staff and the longer we wait to determine who the head coach is going to be, the collateral damage of this waiting is recruits in high school not committing to this school and current players on the Virginia football team thinking harder and longer about transferring away from the program. So time, I would say, is undoubtedly of the essence. Time is of the essence. Now, yesterday, Wolverine Digest, a publication that covers the Michigan football team led by Jim Harbaugh, the Wolverine Digest beat writer indicated that Michigan's offensive coordinator interviewed for the UVA football job yesterday afternoon, evening. So Dr. Carla Williams, the athletic director at the University of Virginia, has now interviewed 3 candidates for the UVA job. First candidate was Anthony Poindexter. Second candidate was Tony Elliott. Tony Elliott, the Clemson assistant coach. Now the third candidate is Josh, I believe his last name is Gattis, G-A-T-T-I-S, maybe Gattis, the Michigan offensive coordinator. You have to ask yourself this. This is a fair question to ask. Dr. Carla Williams, the most important hire that she's going to make in her term at the University of Virginia, her tenure, is going to be this head football coach. Tony Bennett's not going to retire anytime soon. Tony Bennett, I believe, and I hope, and I pray, and I knock on wood, is the basketball coach at UVA for decades to come. I would love to see a Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski type of situation happen with men's basketball and Tony Bennett at UVA, with him going into his 70s as the head coach. I think Coach Bennett feels real comfortable here. We know he's had opportunities to go to bigger programs. It's looking like this is going to be the end of the road. We hope, we pray, we have our fingers crossed for Tony Bennett here in Charlottesville. We hope he has decades of tenure here as the men's basketball coach. I love Tony Bennett. I love Tony Bennett. Knowing that most likely Coach Bennett's going to be here long term, we can then make this statement. Carla Williams, the athletic director of the University of Virginia, the most important hire that she's going to do in her term, her tenure here in Charlottesville, is going to be this head football coach hire. She's interviewed 3 people now that we know of: Poindexter, Elliott, and the Michigan OC. The Poindexter interview was in the bottom of the 9th inning from a hiring standpoint. And then unforeseen circumstances posed a problem. And now Poindexter is staying at Penn State. The Tony Elliott interview with Dr. Williams, multiple interviews, Zoom interview, and then flying to Charlottesville this week. The Tony Elliott interview in the bottom of the 9th inning, unforeseen circumstances, and as Sports Illustrated reported yesterday, quote, air quotes, snags in the Tony Elliott interview process. Now there's a third dude, the Michigan offensive coordinator, that's being interviewed by Dr. Carla Williams. A legitimate question should be asked. Here are a few legitimate questions. What are the snags that are coming or that have posed a problem with Poindexter and Tony Elliott? What are the snags? Another legitimate question is Carla Williams, Dr. Carla Williams, conducting these interviews and these negotiation sessions correctly or strategically? Why in the bottom of the 9th inning, when it's about dotting the I's and crossing the T's, are unforeseen circumstances rearing their ugly heads? Why are they coming out in the bottom of the 9th innings? That's a fair question. Are the unforeseen circumstances or are the snags that are convoluting, disrupting this coaching search, turning it from a search to a saga and soon a soap opera? Are these unforeseen circumstances associated with academic requirements, or are these unforeseen circumstances associated with athletic facilities and infrastructure improvements and the promises to do these improvements to attract recruits? Those are fair questions. The longer the search turns into a saga and perhaps a soap opera, the more we will see high school recruits bypass UVA and commit to other schools. The more we will see current talent on the Virginia roster choose to transfer away from the program. And the longer the search saga soap opera continues, the more competition Virginia will have. As bowl season finishes, and we're now in bowl season, as the bowl season, the postseason gets behind us in college football, more turnover, attrition, pink slips, firing, and resignations will happen. And as more turnover, pink slips, firing, and resignations happen with other coaching staffs in America, then Virginia will have significantly more competition with the talent that's available to fill the head coaching positions and the staffs associated with them. That's why a lot of coaches, that's why a lot of programs, make the decisions mid-season. I hate the mid-season firing or the mid-season resignation. But the value proposition of the mid-season firing or the mid-season resignation is the athletic director, the president, the board of visitors have more time to identify talent and pursue and sign and close deals with that talent and the staff that he wants to bring to the program. It's happening in the middle of the year. You have less competition with openings and other schools looking for it. We can be in agreement that every season there's a level, just like there is in real estate, just like there is in marriage material, just like there is in youth soccer, just like there is in freaking life. Just like there is in freaking life. There's A-level talent. There's A- level talent. There's Class B real estate, B talent. There's Class C real estate, or the talent that's right on the cusp of getting cut from the youth soccer team. And Virginia wants to get as close to A++ coaching talent as possible. And the longer it waits, the more competition it will have for that A++ coaching talent. We have to ask ourselves, is Carla Williams doing the negotiations and the interviews correctly? We have to ask, what are the snags and snafus that are keeping Elliott and Poindexter from saying yes to the dress? We got to ask ourselves, are coaches asking for lower academic requirements to help recruiting? And we got to ask ourselves, what impact is the old, antiquated football facilities and infrastructure having on this coaching search saga soap opera? And then, as one of the fantastic viewers and listeners of this program, I'm going to use your initials because I'm not sure if you want me to mention this on air. His initials are JW, one of our viewers and listeners from the beginning of the network. We love you, JW. I sincerely mean that, JW. And it's not Judah Wickower I'm talking here. I call him JW as well. This is another JW. I think you may know who it is. He said, isn't it odd or ironic? Ironic might be a better word. Isn't it ironic that the Virginia coaching search saga soap opera is similar or synonymous or following the same plot lines as turmoil in City Hall? Let's assess that. It really got me thinking on the think tank this morning. JW, you had me thinking on the think tank this morning, buddy. Bronco Mendenhall unexpectedly resigns after a horrendous loss to Virginia Tech. Bronco Mendenhall, football coach UVA. UVA city manager. Friend of the program, John Blair, resigns as city manager unexpectedly. Love John Blair. John Blair, I effing love you, John Blair. Chip Boyles, resignation, city manager, Charlottesville, unexpected fashion. Mark Woolley, city executive from Pennsylvania, supposed to be the interim city manager, accepts the job. Mark Woolley. And then he unexpectedly resigns before the job even starts. City Council, Charlottesville, struggling to identify a candidate for city manager. City Council, Charlottesville, picks wrong people for city manager position, and now, out of desperation, City Council, Charlottesville, is going to utilize a firm to be the interim city manager as opposed to one person. Desperation, search, saga, soap opera, city manager, local government, leadership, search, saga, soap opera, Virginia football, coaching search, leadership. Unexpected resignations. Willingness of qualified talent. Unwillingness, I should say. Unwillingness of qualified talent and taking the job. Poindexter, Elliott, Michigan OC. I may not want that job because how important is football to this school? I may not want that job because academic requirements are going to keep me from getting 5-star recruits coming in. I may not want that job because the facilities and infrastructure are so dated and old. City manager, Charlottesville. I may not want that job because, look, a police chief and an old city manager, a former city manager, are suing the city. I may not want that job because of the social justice climate in the city. I may not want that job because look at all these other open positions. Why are they open? The parallels between the Virginia Coaching Search saga, soap opera, and the parallels between the Charlottesville City Council city manager search saga and soap opera are undoubtedly present. Unexpected resignations at some of the most critically important positions in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. And if someone does not think that the Virginia football head coach job, the Virginia football head coach position, is critically important to Central Virginia or is one of the most important positions in Central Virginia, then you're not in touch with reality. What other position in the city of Charlottesville or at what other position in Central Virginia can you name where the individual attracts 50,000 people 6 or 7 days of year to spend their money, to spend the night, to live extravagantly, and to drive our local economy? What other positions in the city of Charlottesville have this kind of influence? If I'm good at my job, I can get 65,000 people to spend their hard-earned income in a town they don't live in, stay in expensive hotels, eat multiple expensive dinners, spend money on items from a retail standpoint, and just drive the economy. What other job in Central Virginia has the influence of attracting 60,000 people into a stadium during a pandemic to watch a football game? Football coach is one of the most important jobs in Central Virginia. And you hear me say that and you're like, come on, it's just a game. Just a game that drives the damn economy. Just a game that is arguably one of the most important weekends for just about any business in the community. Just a game that business owners rely on to keep their businesses in the black and not in the red. City manager might have a $200+ million city budget at their disposal. Football coach, same kind of responsibility. The parallels are present between the search, the saga, the soap opera. That is the city manager's process and the football coach process. Thank you, JW, for bringing that to my attention. Comments, questions, concern, put them in the feed, live on every social media platform possible, streaming to your cars and to your earbuds on Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, coming to your televisions at home as you sit in your plush leather couches with a latte in your hand, watching the I Love Seville show on your big screen in your living rooms. Rosemary Pasto, que pasa chica? Vanessa Parkhill, welcome to the program. Vanessa Parkhill, we love you. I want to highlight a couple of Tony Elliott's amazing aspects from his past. So Kevin Higgins, who watches this program, listens to this program, has become a valuable contributor to this program. He sent me a link to a Sports Illustrated article. I would encourage anybody that's listening to this show now or going to listen or watch the show in post time at your leisure. I would very much encourage you guys to check out a Sports Illustrated profile on this man from September 3rd, 2021. Michelin is in the headline. From industrial engineer to the architect of Clemson's offense, the Tony Elliott story is the headline. Here are a couple of highlight points. Tony Elliott's father, from a very early age for Tony Elliott, was in and out of the slammer. In and out of prison. Didn't have a great relationship with his dad. His dad was in and out of prison. Tony Elliott and his mom and a sibling, homeless, living in the streets of Los Angeles. He's got a little sister. They were homeless, living on the streets of LA. Tony Elliott, his Ma Dukes, and his baby sis. When they finally found a home, Tony Elliott's mom died in a car accident. This car accident was so brutal that Tony Elliott, his stepfather at the time, his stepbrother at the time, stepfather and stepbrother, and his baby sister, they survived the car accident. But Tony Elliott's ma did not. In fact, when Tony Elliott got out of the crashed vehicle, he saw literally his mother dead in a pool of her own blood. He was the first to find his mother dead in a pool of her own blood after the car accident. This is him as a teenager. So you got a kid who, as a teenager, had a father that was in and out of the slammer. You had a kid, through his youth and early teenage years, experienced homelessness on the streets of Los Angeles with his baby sis and his Ma Dukes. You had a kid who, as a teenager, as consistency was coming to his life, meaning he had a house, his mom found a step-husband that she loved, he gets in a car accident, and he's the first to see his mom die in a pool of her own blood after this car accident. Tony Elliott, despite all this adversity, finds his way to Clemson and Death Valley, where he's a walk-on, not a scholarship player, a walk-on, where he personally paid his way through college. Not scholarship, he paid his way through college. A walk-on receiver as a freshman who eventually climbed the totem pole to team captain as a senior. Walk-on at Clemson as a freshman, paying his way through college as a non-scholarship player, personally himself, finishes his career as a team captain at wide receiver. It gets better. Tony Elliott, an industrial engineer, so this guy's taken a serious curriculum at Clemson as a walk-on. Not only is this dude paying his way through college, Tony Elliott, while in college, not only is this dude a walk-on who goes from a forgotten scout team player to team captain by his senior year, but this dude is also studying industrial engineering, not a bogus, easy academic path for a man who has jobs in college to pay for his tuition, room and board, for a man who's on the football team and has ascended from scout team no name to team captain by his senior year. But dude's also taken an industrial engineering academic track. He finishes school at Clemson with a 3.55 grade point average in industrial engineering. Dude, this guy is a winner. Winner. Leaves college and starts as an industrial engineer for a Michelin tire plant. Elliott was so good at his job that his boss at the Michelin tire plant promoted him to oversee the entire plant when he was in his mid-20s. He has 60-plus-year-old men and women reporting to him who is in his mid-20s. The Michelin tire plant became the most productive of all of Michelin Tire's plants in the world. And they attribute it to Tony Elliott. So here we got a guy whose father was in and out of the slammer. Here we got a guy who lived on the streets of Los Angeles with his Ma Dukes and his sister homeless as a kid. Here we got a guy who went through the emotional turmoil and the incredible adversity of getting in a car accident, clawing and climbing your way out of a wrecked vehicle, and seeing your mother dead in a pool of her own blood after she was ejected from the vehicle. He's the first to see her. Here we got a guy that was a walk-on a football team as a freshman, who had no scholarship and had to pay his way, pay his own tuition, and cover his own room and board himself. Here we got a guy that went from walk-on as a freshman to team captain as a senior. Here we got a guy that maintained jobs in college, was able to climb to team captain by senior year while studying industrial engineering. Here we got a guy who finished college with a 3.55 GPA in a brutal curriculum track in industrial engineering. Here we got a guy that took a job at a Michelin plant and by his mid-20s was the top dog at the Michelin plant with 60-year-olds reporting to him. Here we got a guy who made the plant so productive it was the best producing Michelin plant of anyone they've ever had, and Michelin's leadership says it's because of this dude, Tony Elliott, this 20-something whiz kid. Here we got a guy that has literally turned down open coaching positions like the Tennessee Volunteer Program. Turned down Tennessee last year. Tennessee wanted to make this dude the head football coach in Knoxville. He's like, nah, dog, I'm not going to take the job. I'm going to stay here in Clemson. I'm going to be choosy and picky. This dude is Superman. This dude is the real deal. I very much encourage you guys to read the Sports Illustrated piece on Tony Elliott. It is phenomenal. And I want to thank Kevin Higgins for sending it to me. The title is From Industrial Engineer to the Architect of Clemson's Offense, the Tony Elliott Story. Read the story. It is fantastic. All right, a couple other items out of the notebook here on a Friday. Lee Enterprises is the parent company of the Daily Progress. Lee Enterprises also owns the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Lee Enterprises owns the Roanoke Times. They own a ton of newspapers. Lee Enterprises yesterday morning rejected an unsolicited offer from Alden Global Capital, a hedge fund, to purchase Lee Enterprises for $24 a share in cash. Lee said, nah, no way, Jose. Hit the road, Jack. Get away from us. Alden Global Capital owns 6% of Lee Enterprises. And in aggressive fashion, the hedge fund, who is notorious for firing reporters, seasoned vets especially that make the most money, and trimming fat off payrolls and fat off business models, and forcing newspapers to operate with skeleton staffs. Lee Enterprises said, we don't want you, Alden Capital. We're rejecting your offer. Why does this matter to you? Well, the paper of record in Charlottesville is the Daily Progress. And the importance of papering a trail through a newspaper of record should not be underestimated. The daily newspaper is our reference for events and circumstances and storylines and positivity and negativity and searches that turn to sagas and soap operas and backroom wheeling and dealing and politicians with nefarious intentions and entrepreneurs and nonprofits that are making a great impact in the community. The paper of record is paramount to documenting the trials and tribulations of jurisdictions. into skeleton staff and strip the paper of record of its most important parts, people, is damning and devastating and damaging to any community. Yes, the Daily Progress is not what it was when I worked there. When did I work there? 2000. I was working there as a student at UVA. 2002, 2003, part-time job as a stringer. A stringer is like a part-time writer. I got the assignments that the staff writers did not want. When I was there in 2002, 2003, the newsroom was buzzing. Everyone would stop at 6 o'clock what they were doing to watch the news on the little TV in the newsroom to see what stories that NBC 29 was covering. We had a shift change at 4 o'clock. I worked in sports. My shift went 4 to 12. Really, it was 4 to 1 a.m., 1:15 a.m. after we put the paper to bed. The day shift went, 8:30 to 4. So at 4 p.m., you had the day reporters and the day editors and the day graphic designers and copy editors, the day staff, and the evening staff all at one spot. And there was a tangible and palpable buzz in the newsroom. The scanner that was documenting police activity was always loud in the background. Reporters were talking about council meetings and supervisor meetings and developers and people who were backroom wheeling and dealing. Other reporters were talking about unionization efforts and the crime that was committed that morning or the night before. The staffers in sports were highlighting the high school athletes that could play at the collegiate level, or which football coach or basketball coach or collegiate coach was on the hot seat. It was an exciting time for someone like me who was in a very impressionable time of his life. College is the rite of passage where young men and women start figuring out adulthood and the passions, hobbies, and interests that they may pursue for a professional career. And that's a definition of what I was going through. We should not devalue or underestimate the importance of a daily paper. Because if we do, and we lose it, history and accountability will take a toll. We won't have an instrument to document history and accountability. All right, 2 other items and I'll get to your comments. The Friday edition of the show. I work hard for you guys. I work very hard for you guys, bringing content like this that I think that you guys will find enjoyable. I hope you know that. Nicholas Erpy, good afternoon, my friend. We love you, Nicholas Erpy. Quite a bit. Social media ninja you are, Nicholas Erpy. William Clark, thank you for sharing the show. I'm very grateful for your interactions, William Clark, and for sharing. Rupert Murdoch has purchased a 340,000 acre ranch in Montana. He paid $200 million to purchase a working cattle ranch owned by a subsidiary of the Koch brothers. Rupert Murdoch is a media mogul. He owns Fox News and a number of publications. He and his wife, who interestingly, his wife is named Jerry, Jerry, spelled like how I spell my name, dropped $200 million to buy a massive Montana working cattle ranch that has 340,000 acres and 25 homes associated with it. How many acres is Rhode Island? So in the show Yellowstone, and I encourage everyone watching the show to watch Yellowstone with Kevin Costner. The show Yellowstone, the lead character, Kevin Costner, owns a ranch that is larger than the state of Rhode Island. The Yellowstone Dutton Ranch is so large in the show Yellowstone, it is comprised of more acreage than the state of Rhode Island has. Rupert Murdoch just purchased a 340,000 acre ranch by Yellowstone National Park, valued at $200 million. Those 340,000 acres are about 40% the size of Rhode Island. Rhode Island is 776,960 acres big. State of Rhode Island, 776,960 acres big. Found that as an interesting factoid. And here's another story that I found entertaining. There's a Sex and the City reboot, and there's a little bit of a spoiler here that I'm about to say. It's not going to impact the show too much, really. The Sex and the City reboot on HBO Max. Mr. Big. Was Mr. Big Samantha's boy toy? Mr. Big. Was it Samantha? You're an aficionado with Sex and the City. Are you not, Judah?
Never watched an episode.
Or is it Carrie Bradshaw's? Was Mr. Big? I don't watch much Sex and the City either. Mr. Big, who was his special lady in Sex and the City? I mean, he had a few special ladies, did he not? Loved cigars, loved steaks, loved cocktails, loved dressing up. Mr. Big, who was his significant other in Sex and the City? Anyway, in the HBO Max reboot that just aired, Mr. Big dies, spoiler alert, I let you know it was coming, dies in a Peloton-related death. He has a heart attack, and he dies from riding his Peloton too intensely. Mr. Big. Cigars, cocktails, steaks, Peloton, death. As a result of how the Sex and the City reboot portrayed Peloton through Mr. Big's death, the Peloton stock dropped significantly to a 52-week low today of $38.20 a share. The Peloton stock is down 73% for the year, giving it a market value cap of about $13 billion. So in 2020, Peloton was the quarantine, COVID, pandemic stock darling. In 2021, heading into 2022, as we have vaccinations and boosters, and as men and women miss exercising with their peers, amongst their peers, the Peloton stock has plummeted 73% for the year. And now, pop culture is zinging and zanging Peloton to the point of Mr. Big suffering a massive heart attack in the Sex and the City reboot and dying after riding his Peloton bike. I hate to reference a Hokie. I'm a diehard UVA fan, but I'm going to reference a piece of advice that I heard from a Hokie. And by Hokie, I mean Mr. Hokie, Frank Beamer, the retired Hall of Fame coach from Blacksburg. Frank Beamer said this, Carrie, thank you, it's Carrie. I love you too, Scott Arrower. Thank you, Lauren. Carrie, Mr. Big, thank you, Lauren, I apologize. Mr. Big's better half in Sex and the City was Carrie Bradshaw. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie Bradshaw, and not Samantha, Carrie Bradshaw. Frank Beamer once, I was covering a UVA Virginia Tech game, and he said this to a flock, a gaggle, a pack of reporters that I was in. I was amongst this gaggle of reporters. And Frank Beamer said this. It's never as good. No, he said this. The highs are never as good as you think they are. And the lows are never as bad as you think they are. The highs are never as good, and the lows are never as bad. It's always stuck with me. That, what Frank Beamer said to a gaggle of reporters that I was a part of. Something to remember. You might be having your best day ever, and so high on life. The highs are never as good as you think they are, and the lows are never as bad as you think they are. Another piece of advice that's always stuck with me is something Oprah Winfrey said. Oprah Winfrey said, everyone wants to be heard, seen, and understood. It's always stuck with me. Everyone wants to be heard, seen, and understood. Peloton Station. Fantastic restaurant. I love Peloton Station, Curtis Shaver. Peloton Bikes. 2020. On top of the world. Incredible highs. 2021. Peloton Bikes. Incredible lows. Now part of pop culture lore and forever associated with Carrie Bradshaw's Boy Toy's death. Mr. Big, rest in power. That's today's show. I'm grateful for you guys, and I very much enjoy connecting with you guys through the I Love Seattle network. I'm sorry, it was Carrie Bradshaw. Carrie Bradshaw, I'm getting text messages left and right over here. Carrie Bradshaw. I don't, Judah, you didn't know it was Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City?
No clue.
You didn't know either. Gosh, I hope the coaching search stops being a saga and a soap opera. All right, you guys have a good weekend. Keep it local. Spend the money in the community. Local, 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 local. Spend the money in the community. And we'll see you on Monday morning, 10:15 a.m. with the Monday Market Monitor. You guys have a good afternoon. Take care.